Good evening. Today is the 16th of April. Welcome to Voices of British Orthodoxy. I am, of course, Reader Lazarus. I hope you've all had a wonderful day. There are no saints today, so we're doing a special about a pilgrimage we did last Monday, which would have been the overall the 20th on the new calendar, or 7th when following the proper calendar. How this episode is going to work is I'm going to break down a bunch of photos talking about the Abbey. Before that I'll do some history with the aid of this. We'll then show off all the photos that have been sent to me to be included in this, and also from the Cardiff local parishes Instagram, which is what we're starting off with. I will then use my personal Instagram story. I will then do proper reflections. I will do my best to talk about the history both pre and post schism, and hopefully you will enjoy this and might even consider visiting Evesham Abbey yourself. I do know that there is there's an Orthodox community there, but I don't think they have a church yet, so I do apologise for that. But yeah, anyway, let's get right into it. So, background. Because of a variety of factors, priest Father Mark came and did a liturgy in Bourneville, and after the Radonitsa liturgy, we all went to Evesham Abbey to do pilgrimage, where the liturgy for the parish's departed was prayed. Obviously, that's something we did because of the day, because last Monday was the day of the departed reposed servants of God within the Holy Orthodox Church. And then we also chanted or read the Akathist to the Mother of God that is in the Jordanville prayer book, because one of these gentlemen has a Jordanville prayer book, and it was a good thing. It was a nice thing to do. So that's what we did there. We'll probably talk more about that towards the end when we do the actual reflections part. But now let's get into the history. If anybody wants to do timestamps, I don't know how to do that, but you're free to if you want. So the Abbey was built. Evesham Abbey was built in the 8th century, and that was because a swineherd called Eoves went to St Egwin, who was his bishop, to report that he had had a vision, seen an apparition of the Theotokos. And so, out of, I think, obedience, he went to St Egwin. St Egwin goes to the exact same spot, receives the exact same vision, and we realise, okay, this is actually serious. And yeah, he builds the abbey there in the early 8th century. Right. So this first picture is very nice. So the wall behind us, as you'll see later on, we placed the cross there in order to do the Akathist. Anyway, this is the church. So there are two churches within this area. One of them is owned by a trust. I don't know which one's which. And then I think the other one is like the direct property of the Church of England, would be my best guess. But I'm also not certain, so don't quote me on that. The only thing I am certain is that of the two churches, one of them is definitely owned by a trust. This is an archway, and so which would lead to an area that has some of these black silhouettes which represent the monks, and then you've got stuff here which would talk about the lives of the monks and how they laboured and how they followed the Benedictine rule. Obviously, Saint Benedict of Nursia is a pre-schism saint, so he was Orthodox, and so this is talking about the pre-schism, or when the Abbey would have been Orthodox. I do apologise for the cough. I'm a bit on the ill side of things. This area beyond the arch is quite vast, and I will show you videos of that later, Lord willing. This is an image from when we were praying. The cross is here. Father Mark was standing at the front to lead, and yeah, the other three of us stood behind, as is the polite thing to do. Right, let's show off my personal Instagram story. So, exact same photo, I have a much more in detailed one. Again, there are two churches, and then, like, on this side, if you walk down the pathway that exists on this side, you'll eventually get to, like, the shop and the archway, which segues nice into this. There's also... So, this is a giant okay, I wasn't done. This is a giant tower. Also, as you can see, the weather wasn't too bad. Can't complain, really. It was a nice day out, and I am extremely grateful I got to go. I don't know anything about when the tower was built, but you go through here and you'll see the flowers that you briefly saw, and then if you take the left, that's where you get to places like the shop. Anyway, this is some nice flowers. There's nice sitting areas all around, and if you look over, if you squint your eyes at this, you can kind of see a statue of a soldier. There's a statue of a soldier, and it's a World War I memorial, which is obviously quite nice, lest we forget. These two are much more detail in the group chat, so I will skip that. Flowers surrounding stone with writing on. I think this was overall to commemorate the Battle of Evesham, and then there's a cross we'll talk about later that commemorates the Montfort, so this is more to do with the post-schism. The exact same archway from before. This is the archway, but on the other side. As you can see, it's very nice. So, there's a lot here. This is wall. A bit further along is where we would have done our prayers, but this is a nice area, and then you had, like, whatever this is, you had, like, this, you had greenery between it, and then if you look here, there's a door which represents the cells where the I mean, it doesn't represent, it's basically a door to a monastic cell, but except it's locked, and the other side, you can walk along the pathway on the other side, like right next to the churches. Anyway, this is a cross when we set it up to do our prayers quietly. Again, something I'm going to emphasize later. This is zoomed in on the cross, and then this is the photo. Yes, very nice. Right, I am going to probably regret this, but this is where it always fails. So I do my best, and then I accidentally hit something which messes everything up, and then I end up boxing numbers, which means I have to start again. As you can probably tell, so again, as you can see, I uploaded this probably just before I left to head back to Birmingham. Anyway, so this is a little bit more zoomed out, so you can kind of see the pathway, the other pathway alongside some information right here, information path that goes all the way around, and past the second church. I'm going to hit the keys to make sure I don't accidentally click out, because I don't have every number saved, and that is an issue. This is, well, thingy. This is the tower. Exact same photo as before. I think you can probably see it a bit better now. The World War I soldier. You can see some other stuff down there. We didn't actually venture down that way. If you want to pause and read this, feel free to. I don't think this stuff is readable, but this is the bell tower. Oh, okay, this is about the tower which would have been built post-schism, and potentially, I don't know my history too well, post the Reformation in England. A nice photo of some flowers and the World War I thingy. Over this way is where you'll find that archway. So this is a cross which I believe is standing in honour of the Montfort. So the Montfort is like, I'm not going to go too much into the history, but there was a battle in the Battle of Evesham happened, and I think the Montfort was like one of the generals or something like that. Anyway, I think this is just a general plaque and thingy for the general battle. This is a better image of the thingy with this, which shows what they would have, which talks a bit more about the I think this one in particular talks about the Benedictine rule, but yeah, it would have talked about how they looked after plants and whatnot. This is some stuff about post-schism. This is the archway from the other side. This is the bell tower. about our own church. I've just realised. You know what? You know, this is actually fine. We can... So, I don't know if you can kind of see, but this wall... So, this wall goes across, and then, like, over here, there's a gap, and we place that cross basically leaning against this wall, but, like, on the other side, if that makes sense. This is a nice area full of plants.
We'll get one of those, like, slow panning videos and then just put it in the group chat.
Amazing camera work by your host, Rita Lazaro. Of course, that is a joke. Right, so this is the cross, and this is also, again, the cross. You've seen this. You've seen... This is a super zoomed in of the cross. So, you know what? Given that I don't really have any way of... So this is part of the reading of the Actist. I'm tempted to try and download it, because that might make my life easier. Wait, can I save this as? Wait, is this saved? If this is saved, my life is easier, because I'd rather go into the other photos first. I do apologise for taking away your vision. I just want to... Okay, perfect. Okay, this is excellent. This is excellent news. Right. So, we have extra photos to show you. Oh, okay. Wait, that's weird. Okay, you know what, it's fine. We can make this work. Okay, so this is of a cross, and then it kind of shows the tower and the church. This shows some of the old style buildings. This is a nice image of the cross. Alongside a nice ray of sunshine next to one of the churches. Nice, showing off the doors and the way they contrast to the bell tower. Walkway path that we would have followed. These steps, so there are steps here, and there's like a pathway thing that takes you down towards this garden area where the sin areas, and then there's the arch that I showed you earlier. You know what, this is actually wonderful. Shout out to Rita George for the photos. This actually makes my life easier. Lovely flowers. I don't know what that is. The greenery. The shrubbery. Father Mark, a better close-up of the World War I soldier. This is the De Montfort cross, and okay, that's it for photos. So we do have one last video. So now that we're done with that part, we're going to start off the reflections part by talking about the wait, what's actually the best? Is it always? So, as I kind of tried to show you, there's an area where the wall basically does a, like, you know, where it goes, I guess, away from your angle and then comes back, and so there's like a little crevice that's segregated, and that's where we did this activist. Anyway, let's get into it. We'll start it from the beginning.
For the Lord who holdeth all things in his hand, dwelt in thy womb, and he sanctified and glorified thee, and taught all to cry to thee. Rejoice, tabernacle of God the Word. Rejoice, saint. greater than the saints. Rejoice, art gilded by the Spirit. Rejoice, inexhaustible treasury of life. Rejoice, precious diadem of pious kings. Rejoice, venerable boast of reverent priests. Rejoice, unshakable fortress of the church. Rejoice, inviolable wall of the kingdom. Rejoice, thou through him victorious.
Beautiful. So, let's reflect. St Egwin is a pre-schism saint. He was a very holy bishop. We as Orthodox Christians should venerate our Orthodox saints, and we should also appreciate the work that our ancestors, even after they had left the faith, did, and respect the buildings. And as you can tell from the video, when we did the Akfist, which is something you can all do, by the way, and a matter of fact, I think we did something, me and one of the readers did something similar when we did our mini pilgrimage to St Frida's where we very quietly read the Akfist and we tried not to bother people. And I think that's also part of it, because you've got to be optical. I know online at the moment on Twitter there's like massive drama about optics and Ortho Bros. We're not going to go too much into that because it kind of, I don't know, it kind of contradicts the point of this channel. But we conduct ourselves, we're quietly, we're modest, we're trying to be meek and ask these saints and also the most holy Theotokos for our intercessions, that these dark times may come to an end. As Saint Arsenios says, Britain will return to Orthodoxy when Britain venerates her saints, or something like that. It's like, that's a paraphrase. I think the proper quote is something like, the faithful will return to the British Isles when she venerates her saints again, or something like that. But yeah, we are not Muslims, to be blunt. We are not Muslims. We are not any other faith. You know, the faiths where they boast of what they do. I'm only showing this off as a small reflections. When we do our prayers, we wait and we find somewhere quietly. We took photos for the most part where there was nobody around. Obviously, in public you don't really have that right of privacy, but obviously in public, there is no right of privacy, so you shouldn't, especially if you go to somewhere like this, you probably shouldn't expect to not be in photos. But yeah, we read it quietly. In fact, we were so quiet that the gates by the archway were actually locked, and so quite embarrassingly, when we had finished, we had to basically climb over a fence in order to get out, and there was a person who was loving it because he was recording. Just in case you do ever see that kind of recording, maybe he's kept it to himself by the grace of God, but just in case you do see it, yeah, we were so quiet when we were reading that Akafist. We were so quiet for the most part, and so focused on the prayer or whatever, that they didn't actually think that there could be anybody up there, which is great. And if you do pilgrimages, whether that is to Evesham Abbey, to St Frida's Well, to other places where Orthodox saints are buried, and you do especially if you're a small group. Obviously, if there's a massive group and you've got like a proper choir, it's a great opportunity to show how beautiful Orthodox chant is. But for the most part, if it's just 4 of you and you're doing like a mini pilgrimage, like what we were doing, you don't need to be loud and try and bring attention to yourselves. Because I know some people are going to be like, oh, but you were quite loud when you did the Slava for the Saints of Great Britain Island. It's kind of like, to be fair, given how big St. Chad's is, I would say that only people in that vicinity of that area actually heard us, and they liked it. But yeah, when out in public like that, we're not doing random prostrations in the middle of the street. We found a nice quiet area, and that is something I want to speak on. Hearken. Is it? That is the correct term, right? Hearken on about. because Britain was Orthodox, and hopefully it can be Orthodox again. I hope the ideas of doing pilgrimages to these places get stolen or used by others. I shouldn't use the word stolen, because stealing is a sin, and there's nothing really to steal. Using ideas is a good thing. Using my ideas is a good thing, especially if you send them to me after so that I can do a reflections episode on it. Especially if you are a British parish. Because I know that for the benefit for the Moscow Patriarchate parish, which is called diocese, which is called Soros and Rokor, your third Sunday after Pentecost, which is slowly getting closer and closer, is your Synaxion of the Saints of Great Britain and Ireland, and I really hope you consider doing anything for your local saints when that does come up. Anyway, I think it was very edifying. It's nice to be able to go to somewhere that was essentially, well, where the original was built by a holy Orthodox saint of these lands. May St Egwin intercede for us. May the most holy Theotokos intercede for us. And remember, before I do end, we're not afraid to declare our faith, but we're also optical about it. You know, we aren't Muslims. We don't do these weird, prostrations blocking people's way. We lead pilgrimages. We very low volume pray, and we honour the saints, and we set a good example, because, yeah, that's what the saints tell us to do. Anyway, I don't want to sound like I'm going on a rant at you all. I do hope people do use these ideas. Anyway, I've been Riddle Lazar. God bless you all. And Amen.